Had something before we left Africa, something more than rhythm. I mean, we had a high culture. Culture was so high that great artists in the world are still borrowing from it. Now here's a sculpture by an unknown African artist, and here's what Paul Klee took from it. Now here's a work by an unknown black African, and Pablo Picasso liked what he saw. Another African design, and Modigliani swiped it, or he was influenced by it, or whatever polite word you want to use. Another black African artist, and Picasso didn't change it very much. I mean, when you look at this copying, you gotta give us a little more than rhythm. You gotta give us style. Now, if you tell the history of right, you got a big problem on your hands.
Shalom. Once again, all praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High, Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai Ba'asham Raka Kwadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone, and salutations to all you sincere Kiam. And this is your brother Abawan, back again with another video through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai Ba'asham Raka Kwadash. All praises and glory is due, especially in the time that we are in. So let me just go and get this precept right, because I've already put the video in before this one, and that's basically what you see Bill Cosby going into how the arts from West Africa mainly, because if you look at all those masks and all those sculptures, they are mainly coming out of West Africa, right? But the art from Jake that was scattered into Africa, the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, the scattered Israelites that were scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, that were scattered into West Africa, not actual Africans, because you Israelites are not Africans, you are Israelites, okay? And the arts from Jake that was scattered into West Africa, and how it inspired all these Edomites, right? So-called European artists to make other art sculptures, which then became world renowned and world famous paintings. And of course, we know how Esau copies from our people, right? And uses the inventions, okay, the arts and the creations of our people in order to enrich themselves. Jeremiah 10 verse 16. The portion of Jacob is not like him, for he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. Yahweh of hosts is his name. Right, because our people are the main inventors and innovators of the earth, okay? Whether it is the invention, whether it is with the arts, right, science, and so on and so forth, going all the way back in history. Not just Jake that's in Africa, but Jake really that's, but wherever Jake goes to, right, that's where Jake thrives and builds up that region, okay? The reason why Africa was so great, how you had all these great pre-colonial kingdoms and all these great inventions and history coming out of Africa, right, was because of Jake. The same thing with Europe. Who do you think built all these ancient castles that you see all over Europe, especially in places like Spain, right, Portugal, and other parts of Europe as well? It was Jake, man. Specifically the Moors, and that's just the history of our people, right? The greatness that comes from our people, and the reason why isn't because we are Africans, okay? But because that's the mindset that a lot of our people have, where oh, they want to be into this whole African mindset, and when we the Hebrew Israelites come out and explain to these jakes, right, break it down for you jakes, that we are not Africans, okay? We are not Africans, okay? That we are the Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. Oh, suddenly we are trying to steal somebody else's identity, even though you people out here can't even identify which Israelites we are stealing identity from. And that's the funny thing right there. Most of these jakes out here, if you ask them, what color JC was, they'll tell you that he was a black man, right? They tell you that he was a black man. If they don't say he was a black man, they'll say, well, he was a really dark skinned Arab, right? Which is then another catch 22, because there is no race or nationality like Arab, right? The groups that you call Arab today are a mixture of multiple nations, whether it's Ishmael, Ham, Elam, so on and so forth, right? Even Edomites as well. So there is no single group of. You still have Israelites among the Arabs, even. So there is no single group of quote unquote Arabs, right? And the original Israelites, as we know, were removed from the land of Judea in 70 AD, which is how you have Israelites scattered all the way to not the Americas, like, yeah, to West Africa, which is why you have Israelites that moved even up to Europe as well, which established them the Byzantine Empire, right? The England and France and so on and so forth, all the way back in history. But that part of history, you always see that it is being ignored, even by the jakes that want to talk about the greatness of Africa and the greatness of the black man. They always somehow manage to ignore the part of history where Jake, right, the so-called black man, right, was ruling in Europe. Okay, so when the kings of Europe were black, right, when you have books like Nature Has No Color Line and so on and so forth, showing you the crest of the ancient black nobility in Europe, where you have historical records that show you the deep presence of Jake, right? So-called black, okay, quote unquote, black people all over Europe, especially as nobility, going back to the medieval time period. But everybody wants to focus on what the so-called black man was doing in Africa and all the great things that we were doing in Africa, right? But what about, yeah, and of course, let's talk here. But let me not say, oh, we weren't doing any of that. We absolutely we are, right? Jake is great wherever we go to, because we are still the children of the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Yashar Allah, right? He's the Prince of Power, okay? But the history of our people is not only relegated to Africa. That's the mindset that's the narrative Esau wants to push upon our people. That, oh, you man are just Africans, right? You are just Africans, right? So you're right, and leave it at that. Even though these Pan-African, African, these black unconscious Jakes are starting to discover that, hey, that even Jake that was in Africa was doing trade and moving to other parts of the world. So now they're talking about how the black man was in Asia, the so-called black man was in Asia as well, the so-called black man was in the Americas, and so on and so forth, right? And of course, they don't understand the history, and they don't understand, why you see so-called black people all over the earth. And the reason why is quite simple, and that's because, right, prior to Esau Edom coming into power, all the nations were so-called, quote unquote, black. So that includes the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Ishmaelites, the um even the North African Hamite tribes, right? Even the Northern Kingdom, right? The Japhites as well. They were all dark-skinned black people. That's why the elder Malcolm always says that Alexander took Greece from the dark-skinned Etruscans. Okay, those were Japhites, and those were dark-skinned people, indistinguishable from black. And we can use the simple evidence of looking at Melanesians, looking at the black South Asian tribes, like the ones in Indonesia, the ones in Papua New Guinea, right? The ones in places that used to be in places like Tasmania, and look at how they are indistinguishable, right, from you, at least in appearance, right, from the regular so-called Negroid classification that Esau puts on Jake, right, Southern Kingdom and Hamites. And the reason why is because, like I said, at one point in time, all the nations were dark-skinned people, and only Esau Edom had the pale skin, right? Because he's leprous, okay, with the skin as white as snow. So let me get another quick preset, because let me get another quick preset, okay? Because let's not get things confused. Just because I'm doing this video, I'm responding to this video, and I put this video in front of my video doesn't mean I'm trying to say that, oh well, we're Africans, right? So we as Africans, we should go back to our African heritage or anything like that. We should recognize the greatness of Africa. No, okay, we are Israelites. And the reason why Africa was so great is not because Africa was great or because we are Africans, it's because we are Israelites. And that's what I'm saying. These black unconscious Negroes, they like to talk about Africa, 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 Africa. And these are the same people that will come out and tell you, oh well, you Israelites, you are following the white man, you are following the white man's religion, you are following the Bible is the white man's book, right? Well, Africa is the white man's region. Okay. The land of Ham, which is the original name, was renamed Africa by who? By Esau Edom, right? So if the Bible is the right, so the Bible is the white man's book, but it's perfectly fine to call Africa that was renamed by Leo Scipio Africanus, right? After he defeated Hannibal, which was another Israelite, another so-called black man, in the Punic Wars, right? It's perfectly fine to name the entire continent Africa, even though really he only conquered North Africa. But that's how Esau operates, right? He'll conquer a small patch of land and claim, oh, he has ruled the world. So because he defeated Hannibal in the Punic Wars, he now decided to name the entire region Africa. The same way they wanted to name the entire region of Africa Ethiopia, or use all these different names, but eventually they landed on Africa, right? And that's basically what Esau Edom did. But Jake will still come out and talk about how, oh, well, because he believed that we are Hebrew Israelites, we following the white man's religion. But you Jakes, right? You double Jakes that are into this whole African thing, you're not following the white man's narrative. You know exactly who you are, and you know exactly where you come from. Is that it? That shows you, man, that some of these black unconscious Negroes, man, they are clearly agents. They are clearly set up by Esau, because there is too much cognitive dissonance for it not to be the case. Like I said once again, you ask them the identity of Aloji Hawasha, you ask them what color was he, right? You ask them about the Jakes that were ruling in Europe and the Moors, right? But yet somehow, some way, all that history doesn't matter, right? The history that does matter is, oh, the fact that we're Africans, even though, right, the historical record clearly shows that prior to 70 AD, right, Jake was not in Africa like that, okay? Our people weren't in Africa like that because you had 70 AD. Then well into the 1000 AD, right, 1100 AD, you had the Bantu expansion, which is where Jake came from, which is where Jake came out of Nigeria and Cameroon and started going south towards the central and southern Africa region and started populating those regions, which is why you have all these different central and south African tribes like your Congo, your Rwanda, your Kosa, your Zulu as well, which are all which are for the most part Israelites as well. Okay, we are going back into this Matthew 5 verse 13. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its flavor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under the foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set upon a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. And our people, the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, we are the light of the world, right? Both carnally and spiritually as well, because carnally you see, right, the I'll just say it like it is, man. The entertainment value that Jake provides on the earth, right? The trend setting that Jake provides on the earth, the influence that Jake has in all the areas of activity of Esau Edom. Okay, that it is I've forgotten all the 9 areas of activity is, but they just go through the ones that I know about: education, right? Entertainment, um government, and so on and so forth, right? And Jake is the one that has the most influence in these, right? Of course, the most popular one is being sports, and you see the athletic ability and the athletic feats that our people are able to perform in these sports. Okay, because as it is written, we are the salt of the earth. or of course my personal favorite, right? The Israelite inventors that have created and innovated so much of this kingdom and pushed your science and your technology forward, okay? Because we are the salt of the earth. And Esau Edom continues to copy and take credit for all those inventions and those forms of technology, okay? But you already know what, you can already go through and look up all different quote unquote so-called, right, so-called, like, yeah, black inventors and what they brought, right, to the table. Whether it's I believe that's Jerry Lawson, right? Yeah, Jerry Lawson, that's created the game cartridge, because Jake likes to game, and it's basically gonna created the whole idea of storing games in, right, storage, in order to be able to remove basically an interchangeable game cartridge where you can remove, where when you're done with one game you can close it and play another, right? And I recently heard about this group right here, the Paddington Car Company. Let's go to that. And these are just examples of what Jake has been doing, right? Because this is what Esau will hide from you Negroes, man. This is what Esau will hide from you Negroes, and the men of the Lord have to go and bring it out, right? So yeah, the Paddington Car Company. Let's see if we can find that. That's strange. I'm pretty sure it's the Paddington Car Company. It should be. Let me confirm that. I'm pretty sure that's the Paddington Car Company. Hmm. Maybe I'm messing up. Maybe I messed up the naming. Maybe I messed up the naming. Yeah, I think I messed up the naming. Let me do this instead. Why is it showing me location? Let me do this instead. Um. Okay, Patterson. So like the Patterson Car Company. That's what I was thinking about. The Patterson's Car Company. The Paddington. Patterson and Sons Cars. Yeah, this is it right here. The Patterson and Sons. Guys, this is it right here. Okay, so let's go into this. C.R. Patterson and Son was a groundbreaking black-owned automotive company from Greenfield, Ohio, founded by former slave Charles Richard Patterson, which built carriages, automobiles, and bus/truck bodies from the late 1800s until the 1939. So what I want to do right now is I want to type in, when was the Ford Model T invented? And I believe that was the first automobile car. So the Ford Model T was unveiled on October 1st, 1908, marking its invention and introduction as the first truly affordable mass-produced automobile, changing transportation forever by making cars accessible to average families, not just the wealthy, right? So not the first automobile, but rather the first affordable mass-produced automobile. And you had the Patterson Car Company that was operating and creating automobiles right alongside Henry Ford and his Ford Auto Company at the time, right? And this is just showing you, the and they also have the Jakes that, right, that also built flying machines before the Wright brothers. Okay, and this is just going into the history and showing you the that Jake was right there, inventing and creating and innovating as well. Okay, so yeah, we are as the scriptures. So that's just the record or a little bit of the record of the so-called, right, black, because you are Israelites, inventors, and how we as a people have been innovating and creating new technology, right, and new inventions in Esau's kingdom, and still continue to do so today. I think I went into this in the past about how the highest paid robotics engineer is a Yoruba guy from here in Nigeria, man, Jake, right? And this is still the case for our people. And then, like I said, both carnally and spiritually, right? The men of the Lord, the Hebrew Israelites, right? The men of the Lord, starting from the elders and the apostles of the great millstone on down, we are the lights of the world, right? The salt of the earth. Which of course, when I say world in this case, I mean it in the cosmos sense, not the oikoumene sense, right? The light of the world of Israel, the salt of the earth, which is the people of the nation of Israel, how we are the ones that are bringing back the light of the Most High Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh to our people. Okay, and let's get a quick preset just to show what I mean by that. So this is the book of Isaiah 60 verse 1. Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of Yahweh is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But Yahweh shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and the kings to the brightness of thy rising. The Gentiles here, of course, refer to the Israelite foreigners, the Israelites that are still in that Gentile mindset, and they will come to our light, right? And the Spirit of the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushua and the light of the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushua will shine upon them, and they will know, okay, who they are as a people, and that's what we see happening on the earth currently, right? So, yeah, man, Jake is the former of all things, but not because we are Africans or because or because Africa or whatever the hell else, or because we are black or whatever the hell else these black unconscious Negroes want to tell you. We are the Israelites, and no matter where on the earth we were, whether it was Africa, whether it was Europe, whether it was Asia, right? Because we haven't even talked about how you had Jake that was samurais in Asia, guys like basically Jake like man, Sakanata Takanoe or something like that. Sakana Takanoe or something like that. I've forgotten the guy's name. Let me type that in. And also Yaskia as well. They just type in Takanoe. I bet that's the easier one. I've forgotten his name. I basically had a samurai going back in history. I've forgotten his name. Something like Takanoe or something like that. I forgot. This is not him. Yeah, this is not him, right? But just Sakata or something like that, Takanoe, which was which was Jake, man. Okay, and the whole samurai and even the whole samurai thing, all that thing, that was even set up by Jake, right? Because you had Jake in Japan at that time, but that's once again going into the history, right, of our people, the Israelites, because we were scattered into the four corners of the earth. Okay, so our history as a people doesn't just pick up or start in Africa, right? Because we are the Israelites, and not just freaking Africans. Why is it that these jakes out here are constantly crying about Esau, Edom, and the white man and him hiding history, right? Allow this devil to tell you exactly where your history starts from or where your history begins, rather than doing the actual research and finding out for yourself that you are the Israelites which the scriptures speak of. So with that, once again, all praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High, Yahweh Ba'asham Yahawashai, Ba'asham Rakakwadash, Wa Abad Babala, and through the spirits of Yakim, and you are quite were edified. Shalom.